All our lives, we've had the sight of certainty. Yet in 2020, we were blinded by an intangible virus, eroding communities and decimating global economies, taking millions of lives and livelihoods. Within just the early months of the crisis, tens of millions of people lost their jobs. Without the safety net of government securities and insurance benefits, each one of these families plunged into extreme financial crises, unable to meet basic expenses to fund their existence. This has become the reality for many around the world, but I'd like to share with you one story in particular, that of Shantara Brown, a single mom whose 4 loving, dependent children lived a content life in Phoenix, Arizona until January of 2020, when they were evicted from their home, displaced from their community, and almost forced to live in their car for weeks, isolated from their friends and peers at school. Why, you might ask? The answer is more straightforward than you'd think. They simply couldn't afford it. Stripped entirely of their basic necessities, the family could no longer provide themselves with the luxury of food, water, shelter, and education, the hallmark of a dignified life. America's housing crisis is just one instance in particular, but economic crises of varying degrees exist all around the world. The oxygen shortage in India. I remember hearing a particularly heartbreaking story about a rickshaw driver who watched the minutes of his life tick down as the meter on the only oxygen tank he could afford fell to 0, and the mask and food shortages in Africa, endangering the health of those most vulnerable. COVID-19 infected not only the bodies of human beings, but their very existence. Critically, these unprecedented effects of the pandemic have highlighted the pre-existing structural instabilities that exist in communities around the world, leaving considerable needs unmet by fragile social security. And though government provisions like welfare benefits exist, the issue of poverty, both relative and absolute, remains prevalent worldwide. Let's face it, world poverty is a disaster, with nearly 1 in every 10 people living below the international poverty line. That's approximately 700 million people struggling to survive on less than $2 a day. Living largely without adequate support and without access to safe shelter, healthcare, and education, they become entrapped into the vicious cycle of poverty. Shunned by the world economy and deprived of fundamental necessities, the poor live lives abundant in scarcity, perpetuated by a lack of opportunity rather than potential and ability. The global recession and pandemic-related economic turmoil only heightened this phenomenon. In underdeveloped and, interestingly, developed countries alike. In fact, in 2021, in the largest economy in the world, 20 million households reported having too little to eat, and 10 million households reported being behind on rent, despite nationwide provisions of government aid. Poverty is a pandemic, and now more than ever, we are in dire need for a radical shift in how we tackle this problem. So allow me to introduce you to Universal Basic Income, UBI, a social policy that an increasing number of countries are considering as an alternative to welfare benefits. UBI is a transfer that's provided universally, unconditionally, an equal payment to every member of society, regardless of their economic situation, personal circumstances, status, or income. UBI is a safety net against job losses, against sudden illness, against the shock of life's uncertainties, ensuring that a basic standard of living can be met by every person on this planet as a human right. But don't just take it from me. In the 1970s, a group of economists launched Project Minkum, an experiment designed to assess the viability of UBI as an alternative to the welfare benefit schemes currently adopted by governments around the world. The results are eye-opening. There was a staggering 8.5% decline in hospitalizations, notably in alcohol-related accidents and those occurring due to mental health issues. For the first time, people had enough money to seek medical attention when they were sick, instead of when they were dying. Other, more recent trials, such as the one conducted in Finland, actually showed an increase in employment, as UBI acts as an additional top-up of income to every member of society, thus incentivizing work and facilitating the growth of the economy, whereas traditional welfare benefits become ineligible to those earning even $1 over the threshold amount. Factoring in taxes and additional expenses like transportation, you actually end up earning less employed than you would unemployed collecting welfare. This is the quintessential problem with modern benefit systems. They tend to reward passive behavior and create a ceiling that perpetuates poverty. Results also indicated that the stipend increased satisfaction in life and improved mental health. Here's a quote from one of the study's recipients of UBI. "Knowing that money was coming in made life that bit easier. You no longer needed to be afraid of paying the bills or of what you were spending on food. It gave you that peace of mind." The universal nature of this program destigmatizes the process of collecting welfare and makes seeking help easier. And the financial stability that UBI provides gives people a peace of mind and hope for the future. Results also indicated that UBI resulted in a significant dip in crime, as people were no longer relying on petty crimes such as theft to feed themselves, and instead focused their energy on gaining education and seeking better employment opportunities. In both instances, UBI helped to create a safer, more secure society with greater future growth prospects. In fact, according to a recent US study, a UBI of just $1,000 a month is enough to grow the GDP by 12% in just 8 years. Imagine a world in which no one is dying of hunger, in which a child doesn't have to worry about paying their school fees, in which medicine and technology come to our rescue, regardless of our bank balance, in which every human being has the capacity to reach their full potential without worrying about survival. A universal basic income of just $1,000 a month is enough to lift all of humanity out of poverty and empower billions to start contributing to human progress and development. In today's world, we have to decide: do we provide human beings with a dignified life? Eyes that can dream, bellies that are fed, and the pursuit of happiness and success. It's time we looked at UBI as a basic human right. Thank you.